The subject of my paper is British interest rates from 1750 until more or less at the present day. That's the formal subject. I'm going to glance back a little bit at 1688-89 because that's important, and I'm going to try to draw out the implications for policy today. It seems to me that there are basically two kinds of reasons for looking at history. One is to understand what people did in the past, why they did it, how they did it, and so forth. The other looks at that, but then uses that information to think what we can understand better about the present and to see if we can say sensible things about the future. Now, what points are going to come out of this examination? First is a truly remarkable fact, which has been found not just by me and a colleague in the paper which supports this talk, but by other writers, that the real long-term interest rate in Britain has moved within a very narrow range, roughly speaking 2.5% to 3.5% throughout this period. The one exception are the years starting around the end of the First World War and running up to the early 60s. These questions are tied up with exchange rate regimes, these questions are tied up with political regimes and with money supply regimes. All these things matter for interpreting economic data from the past. Now, why is this a remarkable fact? Well, it's remarkable for a variety of reasons. British government borrowing varied quite a lot, yet it had no effect on real interest rates except during the gold standard period. Why that exception? What does that tell us about today is one point. I'm going to look at nominal interest rates in money terms. How did they vary over the period? How sensitive were they to inflation? Economic theory says they're very sensitive to inflation. Were they? Well, that's a slightly difficult question to answer because we had no inflation until 1931. Then what do we find? We find that inflation feeds through to nominal interest rates with a remarkably long lag. It doesn't start to seem to have much effect until the 1960s. So another puzzle is why did it take so long for people to start worrying about inflation?